Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. WildMax1 here, bringing another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're going to be doing another champion guide on a champ that's been around for a while, but has recently become far more relevant because of relics. I'm talking, of course, about the Spirit Affinity attack-based champion from the Knights Revenant faction, Kalvalax. Today I'll be breaking down his full kit, showing you how to build him for maximum effectiveness in both the arena and PvE, and finally I'll be doing an arena and Doom Tower hard showcase. With that, let's get into it. So Kalvalax was actually the winning champion design from a community champion creation contest in 2021, and he was later released that same year in September. Kalvalax has a kit all revolving around poisons and debuffs. He's excellent in any wave-based content and in the arena, but most recently since the filming of this video and since the addition of relics to the game, he has made a resurgence in the arena where he's become one of the best answers to speed teams not sitting under Stone Skin because of his incredibly unique passive. So with that, let's take a look at his kit. Starting off with his A1, Oozing Greatsword. Attacks one enemy has a 40, booking up to a 55% chance of increasing the duration of all poison debuffs on the target by 1 turn. Heals this champion by 2.5 of their max HP for each poison debuff on the target. So as you'll see, the entire kit revolves around poison, and for an A1, it's a fine ability. I would have preferred if this was a much higher chance to increase poison debuffs on the target by 1 turn, but considering it is the A1, the fact that it heals and then continues damage rolling, especially in longer encounters, it's a fine A1. Moving on to his A2, Corruption Locus. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit for each poison debuff on the target, up to 3 extra hits, so potential quadruple hitter here on a 3-turn cooldown. The actual multipliers on this ability are not amazing. If you get the value of having all 4 hits on the same target, then it becomes an actually pretty strong skill. But again, it's on a single target, and it does have that conditional for the poisons. Not that Kalvalax necessarily has trouble keeping poisons or getting poisons on targets, but for the most part, this is pretty niche, single target, not the best A2 in the game. On his A3, Storm of Vitriol. Attacks all enemies. Damage increases according to the number of poison debuffs on each target. 4-turn cooldown, and the nice thing to note is that this damage is based off of his attack as well as enemy max HP, so he does have an enemy max HP AoE hit on his kit, which of course makes him more relevant in boss encounters. And once again, just to note, the more debuffs, the more poison he's got rolling, both his A2 and his A3 scale in terms of their damage. And finally, let's take a look at his passive, Pestilence. So at the start of each round, he's going to be placing 4 big poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns. Then at the start of each turn, he has a 50% chance of placing a big poison debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. So if you are going to be having Kalvalax in prolonged encounters, aside from this upfront burst that he gets and the potential to extend those, if there's some cleansing going on in the encounter or if the poison debuffs happen to fall off because it's only a 55% chance for him to extend, it is definitely recommended in order to get the most damage out of his kit to pair him up with a more reliable poison applier. And then final part of his passive, whenever an enemy attempts to place poison on Kalvalax, that gets converted into a continuous heal buff. And for his aura, we see 19% speed in all battles. Very solid, usable in PvE or in the arena. So overall, his kit is not that imposing. There's a lot of conditionals required for his A3 and for his A2 to get the most out of it. You only have just over a coin flip's chance of extending poisons here, so he requires some help from other champions in order to consistently get the most out of his kit. But what really makes him so special, and the reason that he's absolutely flooding back into the meta in Arena right now, is precisely because of that upfront burst that he gets from his Pestilence passive. So speed teams generally are all about going as fast as possible. So they're not going to be typically sitting under Stone Skin or under block debuffs buffs. So having 4 poisons put on them at the beginning is going to be a very simple task for Kalvalax, and there's going to be a way for him to make these poison debuffs hit like an absolute truck, and we're going to get into that in the next section where we're going to be talking about gearing him. But before we go looking at gearing on this champion, let's take a quick look at his total stats. So we see 12.7k HP. That's pretty low for an attack-based champion. We see a sky-high attack at just over 1,600, almost 1,700. Defense at close to 1,100. So between that defense and the HP, he is going to be a little bit squishy. So if you are looking to bring him in PvE encounters for longer encounters, you do want to build him with a little bit of survivability. And then we have 99 speed, not the fastest, and in today's meta, he was put out in 2021. In today's meta, you'd like to see damage dealers have at least 100 speed. and the rest is pretty standard. When it comes to building your Kalvalax, you already know that as a poisoner, you're going to need accuracy in order to land those poisons. So accuracy is going to be important for him no matter how you decide to build him, whether it's going to be as a damage dealer or just as a poison debuffer. Now, for the rest of his kit, you have one of two ways that you can go with him. If he is your damage dealer for PvE content, you are going to want him with 100% crit rate and then good attack, good crit damage, and again, enough accuracy and speed to be able to do whatever content you're pursuing. However, if you are going for the one-shot poison anti-speed Kalvalax, all you need to do is give him sky-high attack and sky-high accuracy, and that is it. He doesn't need any survivability, doesn't need any speed, doesn't need crit rate, doesn't need defense, nothing. So we're going to be looking at exactly that kind of a build in the next section, but I'm also going to talk about other viable sets that you can use on your Kalvalax for a more standard damage build. So if you're going to be looking to build your Kalvalax as a traditional damage dealer in PvE, then the best possible set you can throw him in is going to be 9-piece Merciless. This is the case for a lot of champions for PvE. Most, I would say, because it's just too good. 35% ignore defense, chance at an extra turn, chance at skill cooldown reduction, along with relevant stat bonuses. 9-piece Merciless is uncontested for Kalvalax for PvE content. If you don't have 9-piece, if you can pull off 6-piece and couple that together with something like a Zeal or Perception set or even a Cruel, then you'd be doing just fine. That'd probably be second best. And then after that, if you're still looking to go with the ignore percent defense route, I would go with Lethal, Instinct, or Savage. And once again, pair that up with either Zeal, Cruel, or Perception. Now, if you don't have any Lethal, Savage, or Instinct, maybe you could put him in 6 pieces of Cruel, as long as you're meeting your accuracy and your speed requirements for whatever content you're running. And if you don't have the 6 pieces of Cruel, then it'd be much easier to build 6 pieces of Perception, and this would also just help you meet those requirements for whatever content you're running, and then just make sure that his stats are perfect, good attack, good crit damage, 100% crit rate, and good speed. And of course, if you are looking to just bring him as a traditional attack-based damage dealer for the arena, you can also put him in 4 pieces of Lethal or Savage and couple that up with 1-turn Stone Skin, and then maybe surprise your opponents. Most Kalvalax in today's arena are going to be those anti-speed meta that I'm about to discuss in a second, but if you do want to surprise your opponents and have them come in as a traditional damage dealer, that is, of course, an option you can pursue. But if you were looking to build that one-shot anti-speed meta Kalvalax for the arena, or just somebody that's going to be doing a ton of damage with upfront burst, then all you need to do is, once again, focus on those 2 stats that I mentioned earlier, attack and accuracy. Accuracy should be self-explanatory. This is a debuff, so you're trying to make sure that you're going to be surpassing any amount of resistance the champions potentially have in the arena. And for attack, that's going to be explained better in the relic section of the video, but for now, all I'll say is that there is a rare relic in the game called the Elixir that gives your poison debuffs extra damage based on the amount of attack that is going to be on your Kalvalax. So you want to make sure that attack is sky high so that each of those, whenever they tick, those poison debuffs are just going to be punching huge numbers onto the opponent. So attack and accuracy. And for that, there's going to be a lot of different potential sets that you can work with. You can go with Perception, classic, tried and true, easy. You can go with your Pinpoint and the accessories. You can go with Feral and the accessories. Anything you can do to make sure that you get those 2 stats perfectly is going to be all you need to worry about. So again, calling out Perception, calling out Feral, calling out Pinpoint as sets that specifically are going to be boosting up your accuracy and ones that you should be looking into for this specific build. So now with that, let's take a look at how I have my Kalvalax built. And if you can't already tell, all of those sets that we just talked about, we've got the Feral, we've got the Perception, we've got some Supersonic just because it ended up being a good piece, and we have Pinpoint. All sets that are going to be giving me stats that I need for my Kalvalax. And let's take a look at all the different stats that I have on my individual pieces right now. So we want attack and attack percentage on virtually every piece that we can get it on, along with accuracy. So for my ring, we have attack, ideally with an attack ascension. We have defense currently on the amulet. Doesn't really matter for the amulet. It's either going to be HP crit damage or defense. You can have it be crit damage if you want, but he's not really going to be using his attacks. That's not what you're going to be building him for. For the banner, I went with accuracy. You're probably going to go with accuracy as well for the arena with an accuracy ascension. Then for gloves, you definitely want attack percentage with attack percentage on the Ascension. For chest, you can either go with accuracy or attack percentage. Again, your choice. Boots, 100% going with attack percentage. Speed does not matter on this specific set and build at all. And then once again, for any other pieces, all you're looking for is attack percentage and accuracy. That's it. So for my Kalvalax's total stats, we are looking at 9,000 attack and 620 accuracy. Now, obviously, don't have him 5-star awakened yet, but that's going to add even more accuracy right here, which is what I'm looking for, which is great. But with these two stats, this guy hits like an absolute truck in the arena against those speed teams. Looking now at relevant relics for Kalvalax, we finally get to the Arachnolix, or the thing that ties the entire anti-speed Kalvalax build together. The wearer's poison debuffs deal bonus damage equal to 50% of the wearer's attack, and that goes all the way up to 150%. Mine is currently a level 4, so 110% of that 9,000 attack is going to be added on as bonus damage to anytime a poison debuff from Kalvalax deals damage to an enemy. 4 of those, that's a lot of damage coming through, especially on champions that are not traditionally going to be built with very high HP, such as your Arbiters, things like that. These are going to be champions that are going to be built for speed primaries. So the fact that this, coupled with Sky High Attack, exists in the game means that they are no longer safe, and Kalvalax is here to deliver that threat in the arena. And fortunately for us as the players, the Arachnolix is also a rare relic, so it's not even that difficult to come by. So this is obviously the best and single option when you're going to be going for Kalvalax as that speed meta slayer. But if you're looking for other good relics that you can use for a traditional damage-based Kalvalax, in that case, all of the relics that you would be putting on your champions for PvE encounters are also going to be relevant for him. You're going to be building him with high crit damage, high attack, and then anything that's going to be boosting ignore percent defense. So one of the best relics you could put on him as a traditional damage dealer is the Cat's Gaze. So good with that ignore percent defense on higher max HP targets. Covetous Passion for the same reason. If you're just looking for flat attack or flat crit damage you could put on him, one of the most budget relics you could put on him is the Malefic Talon. Really great extra damage proc on there as well. You can also put an Erethi Coronet on your Kalvalax. This is one of the most budget relics with one of the highest damage boost potentials. Really good on champions like Ninja or Thor or Tholen in longer encounters because of all the debuffs that those champions place and the Kalvalax places. So attack with extra damage modifier on that. And then anything that's going to be of a higher rarity than the Erethi Coronet that's going to have attack or crit damage as a primary stat is going to be useful for him. So with that, let's take a look at possible blessings that you can use on your Kalvalax. Starting off with PvE encounters specifically in mind. So Kalvalax being a debuffer, you can obviously bring him as your smiter as well as your poisoner to whatever encounters if you need that. If you are going to be using him as a traditional damage dealer, you have him 6-star, Awaken, Crushing Rend is of course an option. And then finally, as with Thor, Tholen, Ninja, any of those good debuffing, scaling damage dealers, Nature's Wrath works similarly to Erethi Coronet, except in this case being a blessing. So the more debuffs he's going to be placing, the higher his flat damage increase is going to be from Nature's Wrath. Also a great option. And then he does have an AoE and a quadruple hitter potentially on his A2, so you could also have him be a cruelty user if you would like. However, for PvP purposes, the single best damage blessing that you can use is going to be Lethal Dose. This is going to be amazing for pretty much any level of awakening on him. At 1-star, 50% increased damage from poison. At 3, 100%. At 5, 200%. And at 6, you are going to be cutting through 35 of every target's resistance when placing poison debuffs on enemy champions. That means that champions that previously may not have considered using Stone Skin simply because they have sky-high resistances, maybe something like a Galathir, are now potentially going to be vulnerable to getting absolutely wrecked by your poisons because 35% of their resistance is going to be ignored when placing the debuffs. And finally, let's take a look at the Masteries to round out the build for Kalvalax. Now, this is the setup that I'm currently running for him as a anti-speed meta Kalvalax. So obviously you want as much accuracy as you could possibly put on him. So Eagle Eye is going to be the tier 6 mastery of choice for that. Coming down, pick up all of the accuracy from Pinpoint, Charge Focus, Swarm Smiter, even more coming from Lore of Steel over here. Then Master Hexer places the poisons on for longer, all going to be really helpful. And then for secondary, I came down, wanted more damage on targets with less HP, and then coming down to pick up Kill Streak so that way that champions that you do end up taking down, the first one to take a turn, you're going to be doing more damage for the rest of them. And then Shield Breaker, there are still going to be some targets under shield there, potentially under bolster set. So you just want to make sure you're doing the most damage possible. If you're going to be building, again, that traditional damage dealing Kalvalax, in that case, scrap going for Eagle Eye. Instead, come down for your Helm Smasher for more ignore percent defense. However, if you are still not building ignore percent defense on your Kalvalax and you're still just focusing on PvE encounters, in that case, just end up going with War Master as your primary. So for the first showcase in today's video, we're going to be going into Doom Tower Hard on the first floor because we just recently had a reset. So we're going to be going with a Kalvalax lead. We've got a UDK and an Ancora there just for some safety. And then we've got a Harima there as a backup as our primary damage dealer. But really a lot of that damage is going to be coming from Kalvalax, or at least these two are going to make a great team and just bulldozing through the waves on this first floor. So let's take a look at the damage that we can put out in PvE when it comes to these poison debuffs. So here we see Harima's doing some good damage. We've got more poison debuffs coming up from Kalvalax, and you saw there we have 16,000 per tick from each of those poisons coming in. When there's 5 of those, there are not very many champs on the opposing team that are going to be standing in the way of this squad. Once again, new round, new poison debuffs come out right now. We don't care how fast they are because as soon as they take a turn, we know that's when the damage is going to be coming. So here we go. Half HP gone from both of those champions just from taking a turn. Poison is still in effect. Harima's doing more damage coming in and helping clean up. But as soon as they take another turn, every single champ there, with the exception of that Skull Crusher, is pretty much gone. 1, 2, gone right there. These are waves just falling apart as soon as they take turns because of how much damage is coming from that Arachne Elixir plus the poison debuffs. Once again here, last turn, I'm going to tell Harima to go after the Skull Crusher first just so we don't see that unkillable coming out. But you see how effective this is right there. Everybody just melting away from the damage. Kalvalax doing almost 900,000 damage. Harima doing less damage than the Kalvalax. Kalvalax, no crit, no speed to speak of. I mean, just incredible damage coming from this build. So as you can see, even though this is a build that is being touted right now as one of the meta definers or counter meta builds for Arena, it's still incredibly effective in some of the highest content that you can run. Faction Wars hard, Doom Tower hard, anywhere in campaign, this is still going to be amazing for your account. And for the Arena showcase in today's video, we are just going to be bringing in some Kalvalax. We're just going to have a little bit of fun with this and see what we can do. So provided that the opposing team isn't under any kind of stone skin, this should just be them falling over as soon as they take a turn. There it is. This is one of the most effective ways, 3 seconds. It gets harder to try to imagine a faster way of speed running teams. So let's just go ahead and try another one here. Here we go. Speed looking team. Let's go right in there. Again, provided there's no stone skin on the opposing team, then you should just watch them collapse. Was that 0 seconds? That can't be right. I guess it was. All right, there you go. Another example. Let's try another one. Again, oh, there we go. We have a block debuffs here. That's potentially going to be a problem because our Kalvalax is not built for any damage. So this could be the end. Yeah, so there you can see it. That's a good example of if there's any kind of a block debuffs or a stone skin on the opposing team, this strategy becomes far less effective. But that's where what you do is you build a team around Kalvalax. So for example here, where was that team? I believe this was the correct one. Instead of just going in alone, you bring some friends. Ancora, UDK, Harima, we've already seen this before from Doom Tower Hard, but here, all it's going to do is just give you an incredible advantage. Very difficult for the opposing team to do anything. Harima coming in, doing most of the damage, and then Kalvalax actually ends up as a cleanup crew over there. Let's try another one here against this team. So if you are in a situation where you're in Siege or in 3v3 or somewhere else and you see a team that's a preset defense and you can't beat it, let's say it's so fast that they happen to outspeed you, they've got champions like Crixia on there, so that as soon as they've got maybe like an Arbias, Crixia, and a couple of others, so Arbias is speed boosting, and then they're putting everything on your team on cooldown, and then they're coming in with their damage dealers and just destroying your team. You can put in a Kalvalax and just completely take out their speed boosters. It's actually one of the reasons why one of my teams that I currently have has a speed booster that's under Stone Skin, is specifically to counter the counter meta Kalvalax, because he's so good at taking out speed boosters that I actually wanted to make sure that I was able to do something still on that team without having Kalvalax completely counter me. And it's actually a lot of fun to do that in live arena, because what you'll see is that people will throw in a Kalvalax and assume that you've been completely countered if you have a Cephian or a Bias with intimidating presence showing on your team. Little do they know that one of those is under Stone Skin, so I could still get a speed booster in, which is a lot of fun. So the meta has changed significantly since the addition of this champion. Here it's going to be fun. We have a Staltus on the other team who reflects poison damage. So let's watch this interaction. This could be fun. There we go. Actually reflected them onto our Kalvalax, surprisingly. And they were reflected and not changed into continuous heals. Only one of them was. I actually have never seen that interaction before, so that was a lot of fun for me to see. So again, here, multiple champions under Stone Skin, and we've built our Kalvalax for one thing and one thing only. So even though he may seem like this incredible champ that will just dominate the arena and gold arena, and he can help you speed farm, and he's very good for those niche situations when you need to completely destroy speed teams. But if you have teams with multiple champions under Stone Skin, he's not built for anything else other than that upfront burst. So if he's not able to do significant, meaningful damage at the beginning of the fight, then you better have good supporting cast there, because he's not going to be doing anything for you. We have no speed on him. We have no crit, nothing else. So in that case, that was Harima carrying us there. And there you have it, everybody. Kalvalax, one of the most useful and unique champions in all of Raid Shadow Legends, thanks to his ability to counter speed teams. If you liked today's video, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. Let me know down in the comments below if there's any other showcases or guides that you'd be interested in me featuring on my channel. Thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.